Hello and welcome to Starcast from Planet Waves. My name is Eric Francis Coppolino, counseling astrologer and author of the Planet Waves horoscope. By the way, Planet Waves is about to have its 25th anniversary as a website on December 21st. Ain't that grand? Okay, it has been a very exciting week here at Planet Waves. I've finished everything except this podcast, and then I'm going to decide whether to do the Libra reading tonight or tomorrow. For those of you who are waiting for it, I never do these readings when I am in any way squeezed or pressed for time. There's got to be a lot of runway on both sides. Hence, I have waited until I got all of the exciting materials for this week out of the way. My, oh my. Okay, so just as a brief check-in with the current moment, as I begin speaking to you, the galactic center is rising to the degree, in fact, to about 4 arc minutes. It is 27 and change, Sagittarius rising. And then also at this exact moment, the moon is about to make a conjunction to Neptune. It's 1 degree off. So Neptune, as you may have read in previous works or heard on this program, is currently square the galactic center. So that combination of Neptune at 90 degrees to the core is spiritually confusing. It makes it unclear what's true and what's not. There can seem to be 2 different definitions of the truth. There can seem to be 2 different ideas calling you, but I will say of the 2, the homing signal that is prudent to tune into is the galactic center. Neptune is often a distraction. Yes, perhaps it makes a nice tune. Perhaps it is a muse at times, but it also is more associated with illusions than it is with reality. And it is easily corrupted. Hey, look, nothing against Neptune. It's the modern ruling planet of my own sign, Pisces. But I see the problems here on planet Earth. So the charts I've used for this horoscope mainly are the October 14th eclipse of the sun in Libra, and then the October 28th eclipse of the moon in Taurus. But I have only used the Taurus eclipse for a couple of the signs. More, I'll check in with that one more on the moon ruled sign, so it'll have more influence, for example, in the sign Cancer, more in the sign Pisces, more in the sign Taurus, all of those more closely associated with the moon. But really the pivot point, I think, right now is this eclipse in Libra. Though one thing I will say is that we're having 2 eclipses in a row in Venus-ruled signs. And Libra is the Venus-ruled sign that is about balance and aesthetics. And Taurus is the Venus-ruled sign that is about stability and quality. And also aesthetics, but it's more about the beauty that arises from quality. Okay, so this chart is quite an exciting chart. It is so because the moon and the sun form their conjunction near the south lunar node, and this is happening at the midpoint opposite the midpoint opposite Chiron and Eris. So just to give you an idea how that looks, and it's in the chart. Chiron's at 17 degrees Aries, and Eris is at 24 degrees of Aries. Actually, 17 plus and 24 plus. The new moon eclipse is opposite both of those, splitting the difference at 21. So it is going to be activating and bringing in everything that is currently on the Aries-Libra axis. And the Aries-Libra axis, as I mentioned in my podcast yesterday, that's at planetwaves.eu. That's on the Planet Waves Substack. If you like my work, get used to the fact I'm going to be on Substack. The Venus, Juno, Uranus shocked relationships, Mars, Eris account for projection. There's a lot of good information in there talking about relationships and the way this Aries Libra axis is about projection in relationships, what the problems are with projection, and some things about what you can do with it. But the first thing to do when you notice, well, when things are weird, notice whether you're ascribing things about you to someone else, whether positive or negative. And look, technically the Jungian definition of projection really is about the projection of shadow. But there's something else that goes on in projection where we project kindness onto others, goodness onto others, good intentions onto others, abilities onto others that they may not have, that may be the things that we have, but we're eager to find them in other people and eager to see the best in others. So projection works in both directions. So this chart is largely about the Aries Libra axis, because look at all that stuff concentrated up on top toward the right in Libra. There's 4 points. Pallas Athene, an important asteroid. I talked a lot about that last week. Mercury, we'll get back to that in a second, and then Sun, Moon, and then the south node of the moon. South node of the moon is a point of release. It's a point of letting go. It's also a point of protection. I've only ever read this in an ancient astrology text. Maybe it was some old text out of Hebrew or Valens or someone like that who says that the south node is about protection. It confers protection. So where you have the south node in your chart, the nodes are very hard for a lot of people to figure out. Where you have the south node in your chart, look at the topic of that sign and that house and do an evaluation and see if there's just not something a little special about the way that you're protected, that people can't quite get at you there the way that they could, or things that might be problematic are mitigated. That is the property of this eclipse. Okay, so when looking at the eclipse, an eclipse, look at the ruler of that sign. So it would be Venus, right, among two. So the eclipse is in Libra. Venus is the ruler of Libra. So take a look at Venus. Venus is in Virgo, soon to be heading for Libra. But Venus is conjunct this interesting point. It's that circle with the line through it, which nearly no astrologers use, and was more popular in the 1970s. It's called trans-Pluto. It doesn't really exist. It's a calculated point, like a lot of things in astrology. And what it is doing is focusing a process that may seem either highly critical, it's sometimes overly critical and narrow, or integrative. So it has a way of bringing together, this is how it's designed, trans-Pluto brings together facets of the orbits of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and stitches them into one kind of planet. It moves very slowly, something like 50 years through a sign. It was in Leo my entire career, and started when I started. It was not even in early Leo, and now about some years ago, 5 years ago, it moved into Virgo. I'm not sure I've got an ephemeris handy, but anyway, this is suggesting to not judge yourself too harshly and to tap into your inherent natural beauty. Venus is about women, and there is something really strange going on where we are now being conditioned. And I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if this horseshit wasn't coming out of a public relations agency or some think tank of industrial psychologists or the Tavistock Institute, where it is becoming offensive to consider women beautiful. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. I'm not saying that men aren't beautiful, but there's something about women that is evocative of the goddess, or that it can be. And if people, including and especially men, are not allowed to view women with reverence and respect for their inherent natural beauty, something's really wrong in the world. So I would be very cautious about taking this on in any way. It's going to come with self-judgment. It's not a friendly thing for anyone to be offended by someone appreciating them. We all need to learn how to take nourishment in. It's a very serious problem, and all of these food allergies and food disorders that we're experiencing are all associated emotionally with an inability to receive nourishment, and that's not just food nourishment, it's emotional and psychic nourishment and spiritual nourishment of many different kinds. And so, we live in a time when like everybody's running around with 6 food allergies. Well, the spiritual piece of that is, how is your absorption? Why do things inflame you? It's just worth it as an abstract question. Remember, I'm trained as a Gestalt therapist, right? Not some kind of a psychologist. And in Gestalt therapy, you take the metaphor that's extant in the body and you translate it to a spiritual state, and you take the metaphor that's a spiritual description and you translate it onto the body, and you move quite deftly back and forth between the two things. This is why Gestalt therapists are always studying your hand gestures when you're speaking. They want to see what your hands are doing and what your feet are doing, because your hands and your feet are speaking a language of their own, and it may comport perfectly with the words that are coming out of your mouth or the position of your hands, your feet, and your spine. May have absolutely nothing to do with the words and the thoughts coming out of your mind. Now, speaking of mind, I want to check out one last thing in this chart, and then we will move on. There is a very powerful Mercury Chiron aspect. See if you can find it. The moon and the sun are on the top of the chart, a little toward the right. The moon looks like that crescent. I've colored the sun in yellow to indicate that there's an eclipse. Right next to that is a little green guy with horns. That is Mercury. Mercury has the number 17 next to it. Follow the yellow line down to Chiron, and you will see that Chiron also has a 17 next to it. Chiron and Mercury are in an opposition. The opposition is less than 1/3 of a degree. Approximately 1/4 of a degree, actually. And so when you have a powerful Mercury-Chiron aspect, there's something there about intelligence. There's something about an alternative kind of intelligence. Someone, for example, who might not seem that bright in school because they can't play that particular game, say, for example, in a natal chart. Almost everyone with the Mercury-Chiron aspect has this. They don't quite fit in school because they can't quite play the game. They're more interested in a more organic, natural form of intelligence, not the kind that's trained like the Stanley H. Kaplan test preparation program. So what's that about? So there's an indication here to not judge your level of intelligence, but rather to be with your intelligence and to remember that coming from Libra, intelligence really has an aesthetic sense. What is beautiful about an idea? What is elegant about an idea? Right now, these days, we evaluate ideas based on what riles us the fuck up. Something's right if it really pisses you off. Something is a good piece of writing if it makes you want to throw up. There was a whole South Park episode about that very thing called Scrody McBoogerballs, where this book that the kids wrote as a joke to get a bestseller, and it becomes one, makes everyone want to throw up. But everyone thinks it's the best book ever written, and they're making the talk show circuit, all the talk shows on all the networks, and everyone's puking. But it's the best book they ever read. That is largely the state of writing today. It's the state of ideas today. We must do better. What is beautiful? What has a sense of balance? Where is the perspective? ? All right, signing off from Kingston, New York, 1:59 p.m. on Thursday, the 28th of September, 2023. Thanks for listening. Lots of love. And bye for now.